is this the worst season of Blazers basketball of ever times?
Blazers.
Only 2 options for you.
I'm going to go to that lake.
We're not letting you waffle here.
No.
You either have to choose it has to be, or it's bad, but nah.
Well, I'll tell you what. We've been on the air because the only ones that would compete with this is like maybe the Caleb Canales sort of runs there. But
didn't they have some players though? Like weren't those was that the Darius Miles years?
I'd have to go back and see who was running around there. Dude, you can make a strong argument for this. I mean, between the roster just being dog crap, all the injuries, the Jody Allen thing. I mean, TV is down. I was listening to Danny today. He's saying it's possibly 2/3 at this point of the audience has gone on television. I mean, it is an unmitigated disaster. I mean, you're losing by 60 for God's sakes. And have you ever finished Have you ever finished this bad as a record? I think, I mean, the year that they got Greg Oden, I know that they weren't the worst team in the league, but I mean, they've had years where record-wise they've been in this territory. But
well, what does it feel like? That's why it's. I mean, it's sort of whatever you feel. Like the Trailblazers were good, but maybe some people feel that was way worse.
See, and I don't. I mean, I'll say this. In the 20 years we've been doing this, and then growing up, I was here for, I don't know, 15 years, 14, 15 years when I was a kid. And when I was a kid, the Blazers were, just on the other side, outside of the NBA title, it was the heyday. That was, the 80s and 90s. Those were great times to be a Blazer fan. I can never remember the Blazers being as irrelevant as they are right now. And not just irrelevant, but this feeling that there is no path forward. And so to me,
I think that's what it is.
I would lean towards yes, because when you look at it, you have a collection of just dudes at this point. One, we're back to let's just draft all guards. You traded arguably the best player in your franchise history for a player that we were told wasn't going to have any growing pains. And I don't want to put any blame on Scoot and say that he's not going to be any good, but for the expectations that were heaped upon him, I don't know how you can view this season as anything other than an objective failure for him.
I'm going to that lake.
Even though he's shown signs of life, and I think it's far too early to make any sort of sweeping judgments on him. Shaedon Sharpe's just hurt with another, core injury, and we're back to the, Ant Simmons and who by the far is your most consistent and your best player, but now can he exist along the guy that you gave up Damian Lillard for and Scoot? DeAndre Ayton, again, signs of life in the second half, but is anyone have any sort of faith in him whatsoever? You got a coach if you don't know if he's the coach. And in a draft, by the way, you're probably going to get 2 draft picks that everyone says isn't very good, and an owner that everyone hates, and a team that no one can watch. It's a bad beat.
A teardown and a rebuild can be a good path to get back to the playoffs. Yeah. The problem is you have to have someone who can navigate it and do it right.
Yeah.
And because they seem to be screwing that part up too, I think that leaves fans now pretty hopeless. Like you're right. No one likes the owner, and there isn't much confidence in her. The GM sort of seems a little too green, or maybe even in over his head. I don't know. I don't think a lot of people have much confidence in him.
No.
The coach isn't the coach of the future, and we can all see that. You traded your star. Your young players are not developing. The arena sucks. The area around the arena sucks.
No.
You don't have a good TV deal. Distribution on route is a mess. They're going to go back to the drawing board on that. I mean, what is there to like and provide hope? Like, if it's Anthony Simons, bad news. I like him, but he's no Damian Lillard.
Well, no, we all know.
So I guess maybe it's just another high draft pick.
Yeah, well, but there's not it doesn't at least appear right now that in this draft, even with 2, there's that guy. I think the idea is maybe the Cooper Flag thing, but like we know to win in this league, you need a guy. You don't need you just do. It's not a collection of these guys are decent. You need a guy, and Shaedon Sharpe, Anthony Simons, DeAndre Ayton, none of them are that guy. When you look around, whether it's Jokic or Anthony Edwards or Giannis, Dame, as good as Dame was, there were some questions whether or not Dame was that guy. I think with better things around him, I think Dame certainly could have been that guy. But even he was right on that borderline of is he that guy in Oklahoma City? SJA right now, he is that guy for them, and you see this.
SGA.
That's what did I say?
You said SJ. You
No.
turned him Japanese.
Well, I'm thinking my Asachi again. No, SGA is an MVP type level player. And so Jason Tatum in Boston. Portland doesn't have that. And so it really, this collection of dudes that you're just throwing together and a couple more draft picks, unless one of them turns in to that guy, and you can find him, like I said, Giannis was 15th overall. It took him 5 or 6 years to be there. But until they find that dude, and it's probably going to have to come in the draft, especially as bad as you are, because you don't have great assets and those guys aren't available on the trade market anyways, and no one's asking to come here to Portland. There's a little bit of me that thinks this is all a moot point until you find that guy.
Okay, so here's an exercise. Power rank the top 3 things that this franchise has going for it.
Okay.
Anything.
God. All right.
I'm going to go to that lake.
I'm going to say number 1 is a very passionate fan base.
Okay.
I think we are a good basketball city. I think the fans continue to show up. I went to 5-6 games this year, and as bad as it was, it's not dead. There's people still showing up to the arena. Granted,
and we've seen it dead in there.
We've seen it dead in there, and that's the one thing I'll say. If you wanted to say something about this season,
not apathy yet.
Well, one, the tickets were really cheap, and it was easy to get access to them. But I've seen it worse. It was still a passionate fan base.
Okay, there's one.
My God. I'll go with, again, the collection of young, intriguing pieces, I think provides a decent base. It's, again, without that guy, I think it's a little irrelevant. But when you look at Ayton, who can be a 20-10 guy, we saw him play to a top 5 or 6 level in the second half of the season. Anthony Simons is a player in this league. Shaedon Sharpe is a player in this league. Scoot, it's to be seen. And you found some guys that you think can be nice role players for you. So at least say it's not. This isn't a team that you look around and say there aren't NBA players on the roster. I think some of the years with the Pistons, some of the years with the Hornets, there just wasn't NBA level talent. I can't say that with this team. There's at least intriguing pieces there. So I'll say that's 2, and I understand that that's a big stretch for that being number 2, but I do think it's there.
Well, it's a stretch, but it's also not, in that if the number 2 thing you mention is DeAndre Ayton, I think you've got issues.
Well,
and this idea that, well, they're an NBA team, they should have NBA players. This idea that at least they have NBA players. Well, yeah, they're an NBA team.
But young guys that
I know what you mean.
The best ball is still ahead. And then the third thing, and you may actually put this first, is you're so bad, you will continue to get high picks. And eventually, one of those, hope to God, it turns into something. Although we've had top 10 picks over the last couple seasons, and that really hasn't meant a whole lot. But you would think the more you draft in the top 10, and certainly in the top 5, and the more opportunities you have, that's where you're going to find one. That's where you're going to find Anthony Edwards. That's more than likely where you find that guy that takes a decent collection of talent and actually makes it someone that makes it a team that you can consider to be up and coming.
Okay, so to you, the top 3 things the Blazers have going for them: their fans, a young core, and draft picks.
Look, it's not great, but
yeah, I mean, that's something.
Yeah. Look at
it's not nothing.
You could say the same thing a couple years ago about Oklahoma City, and that is such a stretch. I get it.
Well, they have a good GM.
But they had passionate fan base. They were bad, but they accumulated picks, and those picks turned into really good, young, promising players. And now as they start to kind of pop, Oklahoma City's right there. Oklahoma City could end up being the number 1 seed in the West, and they still have capital to maybe go out and make a move to bring in a veteran presence to go with the young guys. So, that's not nothing. The problem is no one believes that Portland is on that path, but
they don't have those people. That's why I said, a rebuild and all this is okay. Yeah. It's a good way to get back to the playoffs. Matter of fact, it's sometimes the best way to get back to the playoffs, but you have to have somebody to do it and do it right.
Yeah.
and they don't,
No.
and that's a problem. So, good luck.
Yeah.
There's your poll question. It is up on X at 1080 The Fan. Is this the worst season of Blazers basketball of ever times? It has to be, or it's bad, but nah. Vote hard.